Hello, Ultimate Racers, and welcome to another tutorial. This time going in depth about some more lighting details, some lighting tips, some of them improving on the ones from my first tutorial about tunnels, and specifically how to do a night filter on your track. So starting out, I will be using again this image of Troll Mountain. It doesn't have the tunnels, doesn't matter. I will use it as an example on how to do a filter. So to start off, there are some pretty simple ways that you can just kind of get away with making a filter. One of them is simply to just get like something like this. Just have a black filter on top of all of your and just change the opacity a little. So just have a darkened picture. There's a big issue here though, that it doesn't really look like night. This isn't really how night looks like, right? You've been outside at night. Does it really look like this? It actually doesn't, for several reasons. So it's not um, it's not the best way to go about creating the feeling of night. I guess you could also, again, if you just want to be real quick with it, you could like do something more like a bluish tone. This is actually not a good one. You know, so it's bluish. You should probably do maybe the overlay. That doesn't really look good, but you could try other kinds of ways to filter to try and get a darker tone to the track. Now that's a really cheap way. You can see the contrast now. That's a really cheap way to do it. And I wouldn't advise you to do it that way. You could also just go into color temperature. That's again a very simple way to do it, and try to mess with it to get a different kind of temperature. And and there's a few other ways here that you could try to get a night filter. However, that's not what we're going to do at all. So first off, you should install GIMP. You can go to gimmick.eu. I'm going to leave the the link in the description. It's a free plugin. You can simply install it. So let's open it up. And in Gimmick, you have a plethora. I'm not kidding. It's a plethora of options to change your image. So the one that we are going to use the most is color presets. Again, you can also use color temperature here to try and get several different effects. Now, if you want a warmer color tone, I think it's actually much better than the other one. You can also try color balance it to get slightly different effects. But the one that we are really going to use, and you can see that there's all of these are effects that you can use with Gimmick. So do check it out if you want to. It's not what we'll be focusing on. So it's very simple to use this. The one that I would advise you to use to create a night filter is exactly this one. So you just go to color presets, to creative pack here in the Let's pack, and the preset is night from day. There's also moonlight. They are slightly different. You can try to see the difference. This is a very rural track, so you might not see a big difference. It's mostly the same, right? Moonlight seems to be a bit darker. It can make a bigger difference when you have a lot of buildings, and we'll see that later. There's also stuff like late sunset. One other thing to keep in mind is that you have a strength bar here, so this is normal. You could have just a little bit of sunset, a little bit more, so you can adjust it to how much of it you really want. There's a lot of others here, like crisp winter, crisp warm. Don't use this. And yeah, there's a lot of them. Foggy night can also be quite useful. Again, you can adjust to try and get the exact tone you're looking for, just so you can compare it to night from day. There is quite a difference there. There are other packs though that I want to point out. You can of course also change the hue, saturation, and other things, even normalize colors to try and get a slightly different color tones. So I leave that to you to explore. I do want to point out a few nice effects here. You have in the cinematic pack, you have Flavin or Flavin. I don't know what to call it, which is kind of I don't know, maybe kind of a Mexico filter. It's not exaggerated. Some of them feel a bit too aggressive, but I like how it's kind of it's decent. It doesn't go overboard, uh, and I think it has a nice warm kind of dusk feeling to it, right? There's also in pixel.us there is autumn. Very good. It changes. You can see that it changes the green to an autumn tone, which is amazing. It doesn't really blend well with the trees here because the trees are, um, well, these are not the kind of trees that would look like that in autumn, but you can see that it looks really good. It gets the effect that you want, and it doesn't seem to mess too much with the other colors, which some of the filters do. That's one thing that you need to keep in mind. Like for sometimes the blues will just look completely out of place, stuff like that. For example, if we go here, okay, you can see that the blues here are perfectly normal, but they might not. Okay. Okay, so that was autumn, which is really cool. Okay, you can see here one that goes completely overboard. There's also a few others. One that is also good for dusk is here in Shamoon Abbasi, date 39. I think it looks good. And again, you can adjust just how much of it you use. I think it's a good dusk filter. There's also day for night, which also does this deep night effect. It's actually really aggressive. You might want to scale it down a bit. Again, just try it out, see what works for you. And lastly, one that I want to point out are the sunny. So this is normal. This is sunny. It's very subtle, as you can see. But it does give that that warm, sunny vibe to the image. Of course, don't forget, if you normalize, you might get a better result. There's sunny warm, sunny alt. There's not much difference. Again, just check out what you want. Sunny warm is much aggressive, much more aggressive. It might be what you want for a kind of a Mexico filter again. Maybe not all the way at 100. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 might be good enough. But that's it. For this example, I believe, I actually don't remember if I used night from day or foggy night. I believe I used foggy night for Birmingham. So you just click apply. Oh, just once. There we go. And there you go. You have your whole track filtered. Looks really cool, but what I'm going to do is Birmingham. So this is the Birmingham night track. I kind of didn't finish it. As you can see, I kind of added some lights here, but I didn't add everywhere that I wanted to. But you do have this effect where it is nighttime all around, and this is a track made by Skip, by the way. It wasn't made by me, but you have night all around. You have the stadium here, which with some shadowing here to kind of simulate floodlights. The track itself and stuff like the stands, they are lit up. You even have this nice back here, kind of a fade in that corner, but the rest is mostly dark, right? And one thing that you might notice now, do keep in mind, so I don't think I used the foggy night here, it was night from day, but one thing that you might notice is that the track has, compared to the just having a black screen over it, like darkening the whole track equally, it has a different tone, right? It has a more bluish tone that looks more like how you'd expect things to look at night. So, this is the track. I even made, this one even includes this thing here that looks kind of neon. It looks really cool. I also added some light effects here in the pits. I will show you how to do this effect as opposed to the one I did the other time. There's also these lights, which I can show you. So this is the layer with the lights, and this is the layer with the glow. So it kind of makes an actual difference. And if you want to see what the layer itself is, there you go. Okay, so how would we go about doing this? So let's go to gimmick. Quite simply, we go to night from day. I'm pretty sure that was the one. You could also use moonlight. That's your choice. It's just slightly different. Okay, it's done. There we go. And you can see we have pretty much same thing. So you might notice these spaces. These are the shadows of the buildings. That usually means that you inserted the buildings in game, which does create that shadow. Sometimes it can be kind of annoying. You can see that I added a black ground. That's kind of easy to do. You can even just duplicate this. Doesn't really matter. Put it behind and just fill it with black. And there you go. You can see it's quite interesting how it actually fills it so that it actually looks like the track itself. That's solved. So how do we go about doing the actual track? Now that's actually it's kind of complicated. So what I do is you take the normal track. I'm going to just copy this layer. Alright, so we have the normal track, right? And what we're gonna do is that we're going to use the lighting of the normal track, and we will only reveal it. Let's add a layer group. Let's add mask. This, let's add a mask. So this is one way to do it. What you can do is erase. And now we just go to, I don't know, paintbrush, whatever. Let's do it a big border. I usually use the white. And bam, there you go. So what we are doing here is we are painting this white part, and this white part is being erased from the dark version of the track, revealing the light, the day version of the track, which is below it. So what we're gonna do is, oops, remember to paint on the mask, okay? Don't paint on the other one. So we're just gonna paint all over the track. That's basically what we're gonna do. We're going to paint in the areas where there is supposed to be light. I'm using a fuzzy brush here with the paintbrush. I advise you to use that one, but to be honest, you should then retouch it. Okay, so let's say we were done with this, right? Now, what I advise you to do is go with the airbrush. You can change the force here to be more detailed. And okay, see, that's a bit too much. Let's go here. Okay. Could do this, kind of fade the light. See, the light is fading as it goes out. So there is light here, but it's kind of faded. Same for here. You can kind of have light, but it's faded. Same for stands here. Light kind of fades around it. And it gives a cool effect where you have let's just make sure that we have maximum light here. And let's actually delete some of it here. So the ceiling is dark, it has the night effect, but the lower part is much lighter. There you go. See what I mean? And you could do the same to each and every one of them. Now, there are some other techniques that you can also use here. For instance, one technique is to, for example, do this. Okay, and now you apply a gradient. Now, this is something that I have done before. I did it in the other video. Now, we don't want this, right? We don't want this to be this aggressive. One thing you can do is you can bring the middle backwards, the middle of the gradient, you can see, so that it's much smoother going into that. Or you can just pull this back so that it's even smoother going into that corner. The idea being that like you have some kind of floodlights here, but not so much at the end of that area, right? And you can use this for several different areas around the track. You could also change some of the options here if you want to give you slightly different effects. Now, after this is done, you will notice that there are some inconsistencies, so you'll have to delete it. I find that bigger brushes usually help not be as sharp in the edges. Now, there is this issue here. You can either just try to, okay, see, that's not good. You could do with much less force to try and be subtler. Try and have it be much more subtle. Can just create, can just get rid of that, and now you can paint until you feel satisfied with the gradient. Yes, very crude, I know. Not the best way to go about doing this. Just a very simple, easy way. The easiest solution would probably be to do the whole gradient here differently, so that you wouldn't have these issues with the gradient here. Anyway, that's mostly it, to be honest. You just paint the parts where you want it. You can kind of see it here. What is the lead? Okay, it's this here. Okay, one thing that is worth noting, so you can see here, erase, is this? It's that, those areas, you see those, the runoffs, I did them using that gradient technique in a different layer. That's something I would advise you to do. So these are the parts painted in the main mask, and that's the one with the gradient. Same here. It's subtle. It's not super noticeable. Not sure what mask to copy is. Oh, it's that part, because that's for a specific track and not for the main track. So you can either have it, because the original track did not have that. Okay, about this. So that's it for the main way of making the track like this. You can see that I painted the stands to give some light to the stands and the areas in front of the stands. I tried not to go overboard with it. Like for example, this area here in between the stands and the track also has some light. These stands, which are very strange to me, but okay. The LEDs, one thing that I want to point out about the LEDs is that you can see that it's screen, the effect that I gave it. But I also gave it a different effect here. Because if I remove the LED, you can see I actually don't remember what exactly this was. I think it's just those arrows, and I made it vivid light just to make it stand out. And the lead, okay, you can see the lead is the glow of it, which is has the effect screen. That's a good effect to use, as well as the overlay. Okay, so I used vivid light here because if I use screen, doesn't look good. If I use overlay, doesn't look good. But if I use vivid light, it actually gives that neon effect that I was looking for. Another thing that I want to point out, you can see here that I also used that that effect here with the lights. I made a gradient, which is like the light going from behind here where the trucks are. Of course, the in-game shadows don't really match up, don't really make much sense in the context of this, but it is what it is. So I made it. You can see that the light, there's this light ray here, and it doesn't extend to this side. I think it looks really good. It's a tiny detail, but I think it kind of gave some light and some life to the pits here. And we have this here, which is very similar to what we did in the other tutorial, and I will show you how to do it now. It's actually really, really simple. So again, let's go with the pencil, and I don't know, 7, 7, 6. Let's go with 6. So let's go with this. Boom. So that's going to be our main light. Let's make a copy. And now we're going to do, I don't know, 16. Let's go 20. And we just them. Okay, so first off, we go to the first one, the one that's on top, and again we go to blur, Gaussian blur. Oh, let's get it to overlay on both of these. Boom, and immediately you see a big difference. Now you don't have the white light itself, like the light isn't just itself white, which is the mistake that I made in a previous video. So it actually enhances the color of whatever is on the background. And you can still change the opacity if you want to affect just how strong it is. Yeah, so let's give it some blur here. Let's give it some blur here as well. And there you go. And that's it. That really is it. There's not much to say here. I could try, I guess, screen doesn't really look good here. And if you try, you can try other ways to apply the light here. As you can see, there's different ways to have it. Vivid light, not a good idea in this case. This one is crazy. Some of them, like exclusion, they mess with the colors, so sometimes it might actually work, other times it really won't. Grain merge could be an option, but I advise you to just use overlay. And I think that's basically what I did here. If you go here and we change it to normal, you can see that it's a white thing. I guess one thing that you could do instead of doing it like this, you could use the paintbrush. Make it a bit larger. Okay, one thing to keep in mind is the force here. So sometimes you might not have the whitest white that you could have. That's worth keeping in mind. I still advise you to blur it a little bit. Just a little bit, doesn't need to be too much. And that's gonna look brighter. Same thing here, I probably should have painted it a bit more. There you go. In this case, it doesn't look very good. Soft light and overlay, and I think those are pretty much the only good options you have here. And the Gaussian blur. You can make it as I believe it was already blurred a bit, but we can redo it. It's fine. Let's make it a bit larger. Let's say 30 pixels. So because it's I'm using the fuzzy brush, that's why the effect was slightly different. If you use the pencil, it's very pixelated, it's more precise. Okay, so you see that darkness around. I think this one might be around 3, 4, maybe 4. I think that's good enough. You can see there's a huge difference. Let's go with the pencil here. Let's try to brighten it up because I still feel like it's very dark for some reason. That's looking funky. That's it. That's basically it. Oh, right. Yeah, it does look bright now. It might even be a bit too bright. You can always adjust it. Don't forget that. You could always come here and just pew 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 pew. Yeah, because it's a window, you probably want to be really precise with what you're deleting, like this, so that it doesn't look very weird. You can see that now I did something here that it's not looking very it's very strained, it's very subtle, but okay, doesn't matter. I think you get the gist of it. The same thing applies here. So let's just to avoid any issues. So these lights, there we go. These lights, I'm just gonna do this too, and we're gonna copy, and we're gonna paint, I don't know, this area. Let's paint it like this, like And again, just blur it. Give it a light effect. And blur this one, might be the important one. The focus of the light so that it actually looks. So to make it look like incandescent, you shouldn't blur too much. You can see that the more I blur, at some point it starts being very, very subtle and it doesn't feel very light-like. Okay, something like this, probably good enough. There we go. And there you go, you have some lights on the windows. This one is actually quite brighter compared to the other one. Again, you can use several techniques here to adjust it. Just come here and kind of yeah. That's not going to be very even. It's not going to be a very even erasure. You know, the whole point is just to give it some extra light to that window. But yeah, that's fine. That's mostly it. You can see how it actually makes a huge difference here. Even if you do this on the track here, you should use the fuzzy brush. See what happens when you don't use the fuzzy brush? It looks really funky. I do have a really low force. That's probably not what we want. You can also see the effect of the light there, even though we're using this. There's a big effect here. Now, so this is something that we should have accounted for, because when you do this, now it's being applied on the day version, right? So the glow is now being applied on the day version of that part of the track and not on the night one. So what can you do? You can either lower the opacity so that it's not as egregious. This is kind of absurd. Or, of course, what you could do is just not apply the day version of the track here by deleting in the mask. And maybe you could use like this kind of custom lighting to give it maybe a more dynamic light effect. For example, I will try to do something like that. Let's hide those lights. Let's pretend they are not here. So let's say do this. Right? Keep in mind that the road is bluish because you know, because that is the blue filter, the blue night filter that is being applied on the track. And we could just blur it to hell. Apply a lot of blur. Maybe not too much, or it will bleed out into other parts of the track that you don't want blurred. This is just a flat light, you know. The issue here, you can see this is the shadow of the pits. it is actually coded as transparent. That's why the day version of the road is showing here. Of course, you could just do this for each of the pits and maybe have like small spotlights over here in the mask, something like this. For example, I'm not saying this looks good, I'm just saying this is one way that you could light the pits with like a more dynamic lighting effect. There we go. Is it ideal? Not really. Because the thing is, you can see that even though this is the day version of the track, it's not as white as here because you don't have that light effect being used. So you would probably have to, you know, come here and do the light effect. Maybe like this. I'm just improvising here. To keep in mind, there's several ways that you could go about doing this. Sometimes screen works better for this. Go to blur, and you can blur it to try and have a smoother effect. Have a smoother effect and try to have it actually look like, you know, there is a difference between the dark and the light parts of the pits. That's your choice, of course. Whatever you do, these are several choices that you have on how to light the track. Personally, here with the stadium, I believe I just did something like this, kind of like following the floodlights, you know, and it kind of gave that effect with some darker spots, and then you can come here, like I don't know, it's just so some of the spots aren't too dark, especially in the middle of the field, and uh, and you get a nice little effect there. And yeah, it's basically it. You just go through all of the track. You paint the main track so that it has the day color, and that's it. If you want to use this other effect, where you go here to grab onto an actual part of the track, where you this, you can also do it. There's literally nothing wrong with it. You keep in mind that the because there's already a filter on top, the color is different. You can see here, one of them is the night color, and the other one is the day color. Another thing, and that could also be important is if you want to give that kind of light effect that I mentioned before from like the sodium lights. So in that case, you would probably have to do something like this. I think with these ones, is it screen? It might also be overlay. You'll have to see what works best with different colors. So overlay. You could have like spots like this. You could paint the whole track. That's your choice. It's your creative prerogative. Of course, you could also delete what's underneath. Well, not in this case. Because this is being applied, keep in mind, this is being applied on the night filtered track, right? What if you do the exact same thing here? It's still quite aggressive, let's be honest. That's a really aggressive color. But you can always try to... This is probably not the best color for this light filter. You can try to check. I did find online some color codes for the sodium lights. You can just blur it and you can see that it will look... It won't look as outrageous. It will look like it's... Okay, you see? So this will look more like a road that is affected by like street lights, right? Not so much this one, so don't use that one. Use the orange one. I think that the orange one does look better there. This one doesn't look as good because the light is being applied on top of that filter. That looks kind of dumb. It's not just on top of the filter; it's also on top of the white light here. I did apply this light to lighten the whole night track. So again, it's your choice how to deal with that. There is also... Okay, just a second. Okay, so you can also mix and match the colors and the effects. You can see this. This is my my Adelaide Night. You can see that I used this effect on the outside roads to give that night light effect. Not very good, I admit, could be better, but in the end, it doesn't really matter because it ended up. So you can see this is the track itself with the night filter, and then with the day the day version of the track, giving it the color. There are these lights. I believe I actually made like a small radial circle, and then I copy pasted it all over the place so it kind of looks like lamps. At least that was the objective. You can kind of see some of them are more obvious, like especially from afar. You can kind of see where the city roads are. Then there's these minor roads that I also lit up slightly. And yeah, that's basically it. This was my attempt to have the orange lights on the track itself. It's not bad. It can work. I just felt like it wasn't the effect that I was looking for. Maybe you disagree, maybe you like it more. You can see. So it's your choice. You could also turn this off and apply only the night filter. There's some oddities when it comes to the coloring, because again, the lights will be applied on the night filter and not on the day version. There's okay. I think this was a backup of all the lights before I blurred them. So in case I want to try something different. There's also the shadowing. You can see here. And I can kind of explain how I did it. It's not too hard. So here, I think what I did is that I used two different. Can we have like normal maybe? So it's 80.7. Okay, there you go. So I think what I did here, let's try to replicate it. I think what I did here is that I selected like this area, something kind of like this. Right? Boom. And now what you can do is you can make a gradient from black to whatever. Doesn't really matter. But in the shape, you should use shaped, and then you can try to change the shape here. There's a few of them. I think I used the spherical. I'm not really sure. It's not super important. But that's basically it. You can, I think you can change the middle like this. So you can see that you can go from full black on this square that I selected, or you can darken more towards the center. Another thing that you could do here, instead of doing this, is that you could do it by parts. So you could go like this. And now you would do gradient like this. Instead of shape, let's go linear. So that this middle part would be dark, essentially. And then you would do the other half, right? That's one way to do it. You might have some issues here. Of course, you could just do this. And now you do a gradient here. Oh, big problem there with with this area. You probably shouldn't. Okay, so you see, what you could do here is subtract, I don't know, here, subtract, bam, there you go. And now, when you do the gradient, actually before you do the gradient, you can delete, and now when you do the gradient, it will actually blend decently well. Decently, look, things aren't perfect, so you might have to retouch this a bit. However you do that, it's your choice, and then just adjust, after you do that, just adjust the opacity. So you can see that I had this at like 80 something. I find that to be good, a good balance for shading. I did the same for some other areas. Some of them are linear, like here. Try to have the inside of like forests and stuff like that. I usually give it some shading. You can also do a radial. You could also do radial, a radial gradient. So it's like this. So it's in a circle. That can also be very useful in several situations. So depending on where you want the shade to be. What is the dark part? Is it here? Is it this area between the buildings? You can kind of just choose it. You can change the middle so that it's more or less. It can also be kind of like very sharp edges on the radiant or like this. And boom, we have like this dark this dark playground between the buildings. Again, that's your choice. I did add some shading there, you can see. I think it really helps to make the track pop out a bit. But yeah, that is it. Really, it's all a matter of combining all of these um, all of these techniques, then a lot of detailing. So, for example, the things that we did here with this window, we could then go to this window, to this one, to this one. You know, I even saw someone in a track recently with like some little dots of light. Let's try to recreate that real quick. You could just come here with like maybe the pencil with a really small size brush like this and this. You know, some motherfucker here and this. Some people just taking photos. Now here, you might actually want to use something like hard light, soft light, I don't know. It might actually be a good idea to use a different one here. Lighten only could also be an option. Because the overlay will have the color from behind, but you do want, in this case, color it a little bit, just a little bit, just a little bit. One, bam. But you do want the color to stand out, right? You see, it's after all, they are like flashes of light. Uh, you could try, maybe I made it a bit too big. Could try maybe lighten only. It's not looking very good, is it? Multiply. Yeah, it's not looking the best here. Oh, this one might actually work. in the end, you know, grain merge is often has some great results. In the end, though, overlay seems to be the best one when it comes to lights. You could just focus on like the white dots, right? That could also work, and that's fine. If you decide to do normal, maybe what you could do, let's blur it again on top of the blur. It's already blurred. You could just, you know, what you could do, in fact, is so you have the overlay like this. It doesn't really add much. Maybe we shouldn't have blurred and just kept like tiny white dots in there. Like this, normal. Okay, like this. Give it a 2. This, this, and this. Okay. Now let's multiply it and do, I don't know, 6, 10. Go. Bam, 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 bam. So what we're gonna do is first we will blur. These will be flashes. You can see that it kind of. I probably went a bit too far. Probably went a bit too far on their size, but you can blur them out to give this flash, kind of the flash effect. And then you can just blur. Just a little bit, don't go overboard. Because you still want it to look like a flashpoint. There we go. And you have a bunch of people taking photos, maybe. That's basically it. Not much. Do keep in mind that a lot of these, you might not, players will probably not see them that close up. So it will probably not look as obvious that it's pixelated. So you can always keep testing the track to try and see how it actually looks, if it's to your liking or not. And yeah, just so just to recap, it's very simple. Just create a layer group where you delete parts of the night filter. The night filter itself, I use GIMC. You can use whatever you want to change the color balance and the color temperature, whatever. So just delete, erase the parts where you want there to be light. There are several ways for you to then simulate like flashlights or something if you want. You could even come here. No, well, not like that. But you could try to try to, you know, create some dark spots where in between spotlights or whatever. That's really your choice. That's all about detailing, but the simple way to do it is to darken the outside, or in this case with the filter, and then delete the parts that you want there to be light. In this case here, I didn't actually delete. I just lightened the dark version of the track with one of these layers somewhere. There we go. This one using overlay. That's probably the best one for lighting. Okay. Some of the other ones sometimes work, but like screen sometimes works, but you'll have to test it out and see what results you do get. that's basically it. And then here the main technique for the lights to make a light shine is to have the glow behind it, and then to have the the spotlight, the source of the light, not as blurred, so a more focused white there, which will give it that focused glow of the light source. And that really is all there is. Then you just paint around the whole track, and eventually you end up with something like this. Here, okay, just to clarify how I did this, I'm pretty sure it was something really simple like this. And then you just apply not a radial, but a linear. Something like this. I'm not sure how exactly I did it. There we go. You can see there's a big difference between having the bits uh, the bits with the lights on and without the lights on. Then you can try to soften this line, stuff like that. You know, you could come here. Let's soften this. You could soften the light so that it doesn't look as aggressive, especially that line, the line dividing the light and dark. Sometimes it works, sometimes it looks good, other times not so much. You can either delete or you can use a very fuzzy brush like the hair brush to do it. Do keep in mind the force, by the way, because there's quite a big difference, as you can see. And that is it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it wasn't too long and too rambling. I did ramble a bit at some points, but those, I think I went over pretty much the main techniques I used for lighting tracks. Um, that's it. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me on Discord. If you have any requests for any specific tutorials, any techniques that you'd like me to share with you, if you think I can help you, just yeah, let me know and I will make a new video. Cheers.